Hi, welcome back. I've heard a lot of students raise this concern that listening and reading through repeated practice, they are able to achieve 8 or 8.5 and even 9. But when it comes to writing, it's very tough to reach that score. Why is it so? Why are you not able to achieve a high band score when it comes to writing? They say this like, okay, I have good language proficiency, my grammar control is good, I use a lot of words, different words. But still, what is lacking? That is what happens is that students sometimes fail to understand on what basis they are being scored or marks are being given on what basis when it comes to IELTS writing. So in this video, I'm going to show you the marking criteria for IELTS writing, and accordingly you can analyze and decide on what area you need to improve. So let's start. Now, the assessment criteria for IELTS writing. We have 4 marking criteria based on which you will be scored. It's not just enough that you work hard, but you have to work smartly in the direction in which the assessors will give you scores. So these are the 4 criteria of factors based on which you will be scored for your IELTS writing. First one is task achievement or task response, then coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and the last one, grammatical range and accuracy. Now let's dive deep and understand what each one of these mean. Task achievement or task response. When it comes to task 1, we say it as achieving task achievement. And for task 2, we say it as task response. Now, you know that for the general training or the GT version, in task 1 you have letter writing, and for academic version you have report writing. And task 2, whether it is general or academic, it's the same, it's essay writing. Now, what is this task achievement when it comes to task 1, and what is it this task response when it comes to task 2? Let's find out. And when it comes to task achievement in task 1, if it is letter writing, just think it's the general training module, and in task 1, the task achievement looks for these 3 aspects. That is whether your letter has clearly mentioned or whether your letter reflects the reason for writing, then address all prompts and accurate tone. Now, what do you mean by this? Now, you may see on the screen this prompt for a sample for a letter. And the first point says here that the reason for writing the letter should be clear to get a good score, which means that you have to identify what is the purpose of writing the letter from the question. Here, if you look at the question, you can see that you recently bought an item from an online store, but when it arrived, it was damaged. Write a letter to the customer service department. So basically, you are raising a complaint about a product, about a damaged product that you received. And not just that, not the introduction should be fine. In the body of your letter, you have to include these 3 points, which are given as cues. You have to expand on these ideas. That is, you have to describe the item you bought, then explain what the damage is, and say what you want the company to do about it. The suggestions, how it should be rectified. So these are the ideas that should be there in the letter. I'll just show one sample of introduction for the letter. Now, if I've written the introduction like this, Dear John, I recently bought something from your online shop. I'm not happy. Am I being clear with the reason of writing? No. You just bought something, but it's very vague what you have bought and why you are not happy with the product. It's unclear. And not just that, Dear John, what kind of letter is this? Is it an informal letter? Only in informal letter, we address the recipient by the name. This being a purely formal letter, you have to write Dear Sir or Dear Madam. So this opening salutation is also incorrect. Rather, it should have been written like this. Dear Sir, so the salutation is fine. That is, the tone is fine. Here the tone is incorrect. Then, I recently received a glass coffee table. Order number is mentioned from your store, but it arrived damaged with a cracked corner and scratched surface. So you're being clear here. The reason for writing is clear here. Here it lacks clarity. And I've just shown the introduction paragraph here. Similarly, the body paragraphs should also be expanded using all of these 3 cues that are given in the prompt. So that's how you have to develop the letter. And not just that, you have to maintain the right or accurate tone depending on the type of the letter. If it's formal, accordingly you have to choose formal words, and for informal letter, you can go for casual or informal words. So if you meet these three aspects, you can ensure that you will score well in this task achievement criterion. I hope that's clear. Now, let's consider task achievement for the academic module. For academic, task 1 is report writing. And it can be report writing, as you all know. In report writing, a pictorial representation will be given. It can be a line graph or a table or a pie chart. It can be map, process diagram, any of these. And based on that, you have to generate or you have to craft a report. Now, what are the points that you have to ensure to get a high score in task achievement when it comes to report writing? These are the points. The first one is that you have to logically summarize the key features in 150 words. You know, the task 1 should be written in at least 150 words. Now, the point given here is that you have to logically summarize. Now, what do you mean by summarizing? That is, a lot of details will be visible or seen in the pictorial representation that is given to you. But when you're writing the report based on that figure, it should not be like you're copying every detail from the figure and putting it in the report. No, then that is not summarizing. You have to go for the key features. You have to focus on the main aspects and then generate the report. For that, you'll score good marks when it comes to task achievement. For instance, if you look at this table, you can see the data from various years from 2017 to 2020, and city A and city B is given. So it should not be like in 2017, city A had 110, maybe like road accidents. Let's think it in that way. And in 2017, city B had 112. 2018, city A had 115 and city B had 115. No, you should not take it off in that order. Rather, it should be a summary. You can say, for instance, you can say that from 2017 to 2020, there has been a decrease in the number of road accidents, both in city A and city B. That's how you summarize the details. I hope that's clear. And use appropriate data. That is, the figures that you see from the graph or from the diagram should be used appropriately. And significant trends should be mentioned. Significant trends, what do you mean by significant trends? Suppose if it is a dynamic graph, that is, the data given to you is from multiple time period, then across these years, how the trend was, whether it was an increasing trend or whether it was a decreasing trend or whether it was stable. So such significant trends should also be highlighted so as you achieve a good score in task achievement. So we have seen what are the points that you need to keep in mind for gaining a good score when it comes to task achievement in letter writing and in report writing. What you have to do is effective summarization is important, quoting the appropriate data is important, and also reflecting the trends. It's also important. I hope task achievement is clear by now. Now we shall move on to the next aspect. Not the next aspect, rather the same. The first criterion itself, task achievement is for task 1. We have seen the task achievement criterion for both general training module and the academic module. Now when it comes to task 2, it's essay writing for both GT and academic. Now for task 2, we call the first criterion as task response, not achievement. We call it as task response. Now what are the things they look for, the examiner look for in your essay to give you scores? Address all parts of the topic. Don't list ideas. Instead, explain ideas, develop and justify your stance with examples. I'll show you some sample essay questions. Now, if you look at the first question, some people think that young people should be required to do unpaid work in their free time to help the local community. They believe this would benefit both the young people and society as well. To what extent do you agree or disagree? So that is the question. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Now, when you're developing the essay for this specific question, your essay should clearly reflect your stance, as in to whether you completely agree to that idea or you disagree to that idea. And not just that, it's not just enough that you list the ideas. Okay, you're not just picking or stating the ideas like, I feel that this is good, because then you just give one word. No, you have to expand on the idea. Why do you agree to that idea? You first give an explanation, and then you give explanation and develop your justification with the help of examples. That is how you have to develop your essay. For the reference, you can refer back to our video which has been done on how to construct body paragraph when it comes to essay writing. You can refer back to that video. So the one thing that they would be looking for to give scores for task response is that whether you have completely expanded the ideas, not just mentioned words, or you have not just listed the ideas, you have expanded that idea and you have justified the idea with examples. That is one aspect. And another aspect is that address all parts of the topic. Now, what do you mean by all parts of the topic? Let's look at the second question. More and more people are choosing to work remotely from home rather than going into office every day. What do you think are the reasons? Do the advantages of this development outweigh the disadvantages? Which means that here you have multiple aspects to be addressed in the essay. First thing is that you have to say what are the reasons for this change of increasing trend of work from home. First aspect is that, and then the second aspect is that you have to state whether do you think this is more advantageous or disadvantageous. Now, in your essay, if you're addressing or you're considering only one part, either one of this, you will not get good scores for task response. So make sure that if your question has multiple aspects or multiple parts to it, make sure that you address or you consider all of them fairly and equally. I hope that is clear. That is how, like, sometimes students carelessly lose marks when it comes to writing. They might feel that I've written it beautifully, but sometimes, like, they might be just focusing on this. Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? And we're writing the entire essay based on advantage and disadvantages. But this aspect regarding the reasons, they would have completely missed out from the essay. So be careful to ensure that you don't miss out any part of the topic. Now that we have seen task achievement or task response, that is the first criterion, let's move on to the second marking criterion, that is coherence and cohesion. Now, coherence is nothing but the logical sequencing of your ideas. Is it enough that you just put in a lot of points in your essay? Will it be neat? Will it be readable? Will it give a good read to the examiner? No. You have to arrange it in a good way, just like a story, so that the reader finds it appealing. The reader enjoys reading your essay or report, whatever it is. You have to neatly organize the ideas. So coherence assessment criterion looks for that. It's not just enough that you include a lot of points, how well you have placed them in your task, in your essay or report. So the first aspect that they look for is how you have made the paragraphs or paragraphing. Now, when it comes to essays, you definitely need to have this structure. That is, you have to begin with an introduction, followed by body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, and in some essay question, if it demands body paragraph 3, a body paragraph 3 should also be there, and finally wrap up with a conclusion. This is how the structure of essays should be. Now, with reports also, the reports also have a specific structure. You start with an introduction, then you give an overview of the report, then the body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2. There's no conclusion when it comes to report writing. So you have to be clear with the structure of essay and report and maintain and make sure that you maintain or you adhere to that structure. That is important, how you're structuring the essay or report. Now, for instance, you can see an essay question here. The same question, more and more employees are choosing to work remotely from home rather than going into office every day. Here I have not included the other part. What are the reasons for this? Just one aspect is here. Do the advantages of this development outweigh the disadvantage? So how will you be structuring the essay? There'll be an introduction wherein you will be paraphrasing the question and you'll be stating your opinion, and in body paragraph 2 you'll be talking about either advantage or disadvantage, and the other one you'll be putting in body paragraph 2, and here you'll not need a body paragraph 3 and the conclusion. Now, if you look at this line graph, here you'll start with an introduction when you'll just paraphrase the question again. the given graph, line graph, shows the trend of the money spent on books in various countries from the year 1995 to 2005. Then overview. Overview means an overall picture regarding this graph, whether like if you talk about the overall trend of this graph, what we can see is that like money spent on books have been increasing in all the countries in the given time period. Then in body paragraph 1, like what you can think of dividing the graph into 2 time periods, and you can talk about the first half in one body paragraph and about the second half in the next body paragraph. Now that's how you structure or you neatly arrange the ideas in a essay, whether it be essay or report. You need to have an idea on, it's not just enough you gather a lot of points, but how well you are laying it out to the reader to read. That's also important. Now that's regarding coherence, logical sequencing or arrangement of the ideas. And one more thing is that it's not just about the paragraph. Paragraph should have the entire the entire essay or report should have a structure. But that's not just enough. The ideas in the paragraph should also have a sequence. You should not start a paragraph abruptly. You should start with a topic sentence, then develop the idea and then support the idea. If it's for essay writing, and let's consider this body paragraph 1, where you're talking about the advantages of working from home. So if I say that it offers a lot of flexibility to the employee, I start of my body paragraph 1 in that way. What offers a lot of flexibility? No, you have to give a good opening. In this paragraph, body paragraph 1, if you're going to talk about the advantages, you have to make it clear, or you have to give that hint to the reader that in this paragraph, you're going to discuss that idea. So you can start off with a topic sentence by saying that work from home provides a wide range of advantages or benefits to the employees. Firstly, and then you can come to that flexibility. That's how you have to arrange the ideas within a paragraph. I hope that's clear. In total, the essays should be structured into paragraphs, and the paragraphs should also have a proper sequence. Same goes with reports. Now that is coherence, and cohesion means how you're connecting the ideas and paragraphs. I said like you have to neatly place them in different paragraphs. Now how will you move from one idea to another? How do you bridge the ideas? That's what you mean by cohesion. Here comes the role of linkers or cohesive devices, we call them. Certain words which will help you in actually bridging the ideas. For instance, if you have to combine similar or same kind of ideas, you can use linkers like moreover, additionally, furthermore. For instance, if you're talking about the advantages in one paragraph, you spoke about the first advantage. Now you're moving on to the second one. Then you can start off by saying additionally, which means that it's an add-on. You're putting in a similar idea. Now, if you have to jump from one idea to an opposite idea, contrasting ideas, then you can use connectors like however, whereas, while, on contrary, and so on. For instance, like you have described about the advantages in the first paragraph. Now, when you jump onto the second paragraph, you can start by stating that, however, work from home has its own shortcomings. So you are giving an idea to the reader that you are going to have a shift in the idea. So such cohesive devices or linkers will help the reader to understand the change in idea or the add-on in ideas. It's actually guiding the reader. It helps the reader to guide through your writing. It acts as a guide. Okay. Then when you're quoting examples, you can use words like for instance, for example, to illustrate. Again, it's giving a hint to the reader. You're going to put in an example. Then if you want to explain an idea, you just put the idea in one sentence, and if you have to elaborate further on it, you have to make it more clear. You can say like, which means that, this is to say that, or to clarify. You can use such phrases. So these are simple ways. You might be knowing it. It's not something very complicated. You know the meaning of such phrases, but you have to apply it rightly in your essay so that you can score well when it comes to coherence and cohesion. With coherence, and now that we have discussed coherence and cohesion, now we are heading on to our third criterion, which is grammatical range and accuracy. Now, grammar as such is really vast. I've included some of the aspects that you can be careful about. One main aspect is tenses and their combinations. You have to use the right tense depending on what kind of data you're presenting. And if you're able to use a combination of tenses, then of course you're showing your flexibility. Now see this. The graph shows the number of students enrolled over 10 years. It's in simple present tense because you're talking about the graph given there. This is your introduction, so you can put it in simple present tense. The graph shows. We don't say that the graph showed. No, the graph is still showing. You're going to talk about that graph. So you'll be putting it in simple present tense. Now, this is a data which you're going to put into your report. So this data is from 2010, a past year. So how the sentence is constructed. In 2010, the number of visitors increased significantly, increased, past tense, because you're quoting data from a past year. Then the population has grown steadily since 2010, has grown. You have used the perfect tense there. Why? Because starting from 2010 until now, it has been increasing. So you have used the present perfect tense there. Depending on the situation, depending on the data, you have to choose the appropriate tense. That is what you mean by accuracy of the grammar. Then many people believe that education is the key to success. Believe that. You have put it in simple present tense because you're giving a general idea, or you're making something, you're giving a fact, or you're making a statement. So you will always put that in simple present tense. You cannot say that many people believe that. No, it's a general thing. So you have to put it in simple present tense. Suppose if you are stating something from the past, see, in the past, people used to rely, again past, used to rely on newspapers for information. So if you are stating something very specifically referring to the past, then of course you have to use the past tense. Other than something, if it's a general fact that you're mentioning, it should be in simple present tense like this. Okay? That is one aspect of grammar, tenses. Then another is usage of active and passive voices. Now, this comes in handy when it comes to your report writing. For example, you can say that the company exported 2,000 units in 2015. It's an active voice because the action is done by the company. The company is the subject, so you put it in active voice. Now, just assume that you get a process diagram and see how the sentence has been constructed. The raw materials are transported to the factory. It's a passive construction. I cannot say that the raw materials transported to the factory because the raw materials itself cannot go to the factory. It has to be done by an external force. So this has to be in passive voice. So when it comes to process diagrams, especially mechanical process diagrams, then make sure that you use the passive voice appropriately. Now, comparatives. It's good to show comparative words in your report writing as well as in your essay writing. Now, for instance, the number of tourists in 2020 was higher than. Such usages will actually fetch in scores for you when you show a variety of usages, like not just variety with tenses or not just variety with voices, but using words like these. Was higher than. Public transport is usually cheaper than. See how we have made use of comparisons. That is one aspect. Then conditionals, that is you're providing a condition. If the government invests in education, society will benefit. That is another aspect. Then punctuation, using full stops and commas as and when necessary, because the shifting of comma from one place to another can actually change the entire meaning of the context. So make sure that you use the punctuations appropriately. So grammar, range and accuracy, a lot of factors can be considered. You can pay attention to a lot of aspects, not just the tenses. Make sure that you use all of these aspects like comparisons, conditionals, active, passive voice, just a combination of all this to show your grammatical range. But yes, of course, it has to be used accurately. Okay. Now that we have done with grammatical range and accuracy, we shall move on to our last criterion, that is lexical resource. Lexical resource is nothing but vocabulary range, the kind of words, the collection of words that you showcase in your writing. That is what you mean by lexical resource. Now, how can you showcase that? The first thing that you have to be careful is, can replace simple, common or informal words with more formal or uncommon ones. Okay. So when you're doing your essay writing, you're doing a formal writing. So make sure that instead of using simple words, if you're using more informal and uncommon words, that can actually fetch you good scores. For instance, if you say, a lot of people think that kids learn better when they play. That idea is very clear. Now, if the same idea has been written in this way, a significant number of individuals believe that children acquire knowledge more effectively through play-based activities. The idea is same, but here it's informal. In the first one, they've used kids. But here, like it's said as children, and acquire knowledge instead of learn better, it has been mentioned acquire knowledge. So that's how you show your vocab, that instead of using very common words, you're putting in uncommon or formal words. That is one aspect. Then collocation. Collocation is using two different words. Collocation means two words. Like if they are independent, they'll be conveying a different meaning. But when they come together, they totally convey a third different idea. So using collocation in your writing is also a very good way to score better. For instance, but you have to use the right collocation. Simply, you cannot bring in two words. That will not be meaningful. For instance, if you say that students must do a decision about their future careers. Is do a decision right collocation? Do we say do a decision? No. Students must make a decision. Making a decision is the right collocation. Then there was strong traffic. Do we say strong traffic? No. Heavy traffic. Strong, and you might think that strong and heavy more or less have the same meaning. Then why can't I say heavy? Strong traffic. No, that's not the right collocation. Separately, the words will have different meaning. And if you have to join them together and convey a different meaning, then the collocation should be right. So get used to a lot of collocation. You can read a lot of articles so that you come across a lot of such usages and you can apply the same in your essay writing. Then demonstrate range of vocabulary. How can you show a range of vocabulary? One way is by using synonyms. That is, if you use one word in one instance, instead of using the same word again and again, just try to paraphrase it. You try using synonyms of it. For example, if you're talking about advantages, you can say benefits. Don't repeatedly use the word advantages. You can say benefits or how it helps or the advantage. You can even change the form of the word. You can, instead of saying advantage again and again, you can say advantageous, beneficial, benefits. So changing the form of the word is also another way of showcasing your vocabulary. Then, of course, another thing that comes in lexical resources, using the appropriate tone. This comes in your letter writing as well. If you're using a formal letter, you have to use the formal vocab, and in formal letters, you can go for informal vocabulary. In essay writing and report writing, make sure that you use a formal tone to it. So these are the aspects that you need to keep in mind while doing your IELTS writing. It's not enough that you have a lot of ideas. You might be somebody who have good ideas, but you don't know how to present it in the right way on paper. So this video was all about how to put in those ideas into the right way onto the paper. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you and stay tuned.
MedCity International Academy. Trusted hands forever.